Known for his dynamic preaching and energetic sermons, Pastor Creflo Dollar has become a prominent figure in televangelism. But even the most successful of men are not immune to tragedy. Recently, Dollar has been rocked by heartbreaking news that has left his ministry reeling. Despite years of building a powerful following and a lavish lifestyle, rumours and speculation have surrounded this devastating incident, leaving many to question what went wrong for the man who seemed to have it all. Before diving into the details of this tragedy, let's first explore the humble beginnings of Pastor Dollar's journey. From his early struggles to the rapid rise of his ministry, this is the story of how a man with so much promise was struck by an event that threatens to unravel everything he has built. Stay tuned. The humble beginnings of Creflo Dollar's ministry. In 1986, Pastor Creflo Dollar began a journey that would forever change his life and the lives of thousands of followers worldwide. At the time, few could have predicted that this small beginning would grow into one of the most influential and controversial ministries in modern Christianity. The origins of Pastor Creflo Dollar's ministry were far from glamorous, beginning in a humble school cafeteria in College Park, Georgia. His first service, which was held at Kathleen Mitchell Elementary School, consisted of just 8 attendees. Despite the modest start, the vision and passion that Pastor Dollar exuded in that small room were already evident. It was clear that this was not just another pastor delivering a standard sermon, but someone driven by an undeniable calling to share his message of faith, prosperity, and change. Although the initial congregation was small, Pastor Dollar's commitment to teaching and his ability to connect with others quickly became apparent. His natural charisma and persuasive speaking style made his sermons captivating and relatable, and they began attracting more followers. What started in a school cafeteria grew steadily as people resonated with his powerful lessons on faith and prosperity, and the ministry's influence began to spread. By the end of the year, the small Bible study group had evolved into a much larger operation. In response to the growing number of attendees, Pastor Dollar sought a permanent space to house his expanding congregation. The move to a permanent location marked the beginning of the ministry's rapid growth, and a specialized chapel was built to accommodate the growing membership. The growth wasn't limited to the number of people attending the services. The message and goals of the ministry also began to expand as Pastor Dollar saw the need to reach beyond the local community. He understood that if the gospel was truly to make a difference in the world, the influence of the ministry had to be global. In line with this vision, the ministry changed its name to World Changers Church International, a clear sign of its increasing influence and global ambitions. This name change was not merely symbolic. It was a reflection of Pastor Dollar's desire to take his message to people far beyond Georgia, beyond the United States, and into the farthest reaches of the world. World Changers Church International, WCCI, would become the beacon of Pastor Dollar's teachings, and over the years, it would grow to represent much more than just a church. It would be a movement. Expanding reach, the growth of World Changers. Church International. As World Changers, Church International continued to grow. It quickly became apparent that the church needed to adapt to its expanding congregation. Pastor Dollar started holding multiple services on Sundays to meet the demand, with 4 services each week becoming the norm. This allowed him to reach a wider audience as more people attended the services to hear his teachings. But it wasn't just about numbers, it was about impact. Pastor Dollar began using modern forms of communication, such as radio and television, to extend his reach even further. In addition to his in-person services, he launched a weekly radio show and a television program called Changing Your World, which became hugely popular among listeners and viewers alike. These platforms allowed Pastor Dollar to reach millions of people globally. His ability to engage people from various walks of life, coupled with his use of technology to spread the gospel, made him a household name. His dynamic teachings, especially on the concept of prosperity theology, drew people from across the world, eager to learn about how faith and financial success could be intertwined. For many of his followers, Pastor Dollar's message represented hope. Hope that through faith and giving, they too could experience financial breakthroughs and live prosperous lives. As the years passed, the ministry's financial growth paralleled its physical expansion. In 1995, World Changers Church International moved into the World Dome, a state-of-the-art facility that was capable of accommodating thousands of worshippers. This expansive building, which cost almost $20 million to construct, was proof of the ministry's success and the dedication of its members. The World Dome, with its vast auditorium and impressive architecture, symbolized the pinnacle of what Pastor Dollar had built. A megachurch that not only influenced the community, but also served as a testament to his leadership and vision. The construction of the World Dome was significant for another reason. It was funded entirely through the support of the congregation. This approach, which avoided the use of bank loans, was seen as a triumph for Pastor Dollar's financial principles. It demonstrated that with the right mindset, faith, and support from believers, a church could build monumental structures without relying on outside financial aid. For the congregation, this was a powerful message of empowerment and achievement. By the mid-2000s, Pastor Dollar's ministry had grown into one of the largest megachurches in the world, with a membership that reached around 30,000 people. In 2006, the church was generating approximately $70 million in revenue, a remarkable feat that reflected both the size and influence of the ministry. With such tremendous growth, Pastor Dollar was well on his way to establishing himself as one of the leading figures in the realm of televangelism. However, despite the success in Georgia, Pastor Dollar was not content to stop there. His vision was broader, and he wanted his message to reach the major urban centers of America. National expansion, moving into New York. In 2012, Pastor Dollar took a significant step in expanding his ministry beyond the state of Georgia. He strategically entered the New York market, one of the most influential and diverse metropolitan areas in the United States. This move was part of a broader strategy to position World Changers Church International in key cities across the country, making his teachings more accessible to people in large urban environments. The church leased the historic Lowe's Paradise Theatre in the Bronx, marking the start of a new chapter in the ministry's growth. This was not just about opening a new location. It was about reaching people in areas where his message could make the most impact. The move to New York was part of Pastor Dollar's broader plan to bring his teachings to an even wider audience, targeting urban communities that were in need of spiritual and financial guidance. The choice of New York, with its diverse population and global influence, was strategic, and it reflected Pastor Dollar's ambition to take his teachings to people from all walks of life. This expansion into one of the world's most influential cities proved that his ministry was not just a regional operation, but a global movement that had the power to resonate with people everywhere. The prosperity gospel, success and criticism. As World Changers Church International expanded, so too did the popularity of Pastor Dollar's teachings, particularly his controversial beliefs surrounding prosperity theology. Prosperity theology, often referred to as the prosperity gospel, is the belief that God rewards faithfulness with financial wealth and material success. According to this teaching, Christians can achieve prosperity in all areas of life: spiritual, emotional, physical, social, and professional, by giving generously to the church and having faith that their financial blessings will follow. Pastor Dollar, a key proponent of this doctrine, often preached that financial success was a sign of God's favor, and that believers should expect to be financially blessed when they sow seeds of faith through tithing and donations. While this message resonated with many followers who saw it as a path to financial freedom and success, it also drew significant criticism. Detractors argued that Pastor Dollar was promoting a gospel focused more on material wealth than on spiritual growth. They accused him of exploiting his congregation's faith for personal gain, particularly as his lavish lifestyle became more public. Critics pointed to his expensive homes, luxury cars, and private jet as evidence of a double standard between his teachings and his own way of life. His lavish spending was seen by many as contradictory to the biblical teachings of humility, sacrifice, and service to others. In the midst of this criticism, Pastor Dollar remained steadfast in his beliefs, defending prosperity theology as a legitimate interpretation of Scripture. He argued that Jesus Christ himself was affluent, pointing out that Jesus had a treasurer, which he believed symbolized financial success. Pastor Dollar's teachings on wealth, success, and generosity continued to attract followers who saw his message as empowering and transformative. However, the backlash from critics grew louder, with many questioning the ethics of a pastor who lived such a luxurious lifestyle while encouraging others to donate substantial amounts of money to the church. The investigation, financial scrutiny and controversy. In 2007, Pastor Dollar and several other televangelists found themselves at the center of a high-profile investigation led by Senator Chuck Grassley. The investigation was prompted by public outcry and media attention on the extravagant lifestyles of several prominent TV preachers who were accused of misusing donations for personal gain. Pastor Dollar, along with 5 other televangelists, was scrutinized for his financial practices and the lack of transparency regarding the church's income and expenditures. The inquiry sought to determine whether Pastor Dollar and other televangelists were using donations for personal luxury, rather than for the benefit of their ministries and their congregations. Pastor Dollar, however, vehemently denied any wrongdoing. He argued that only the IRS had the authority to investigate the financial practices of religious organizations, and that the Senate Finance Committee had overstepped its bounds in trying to regulate his ministry's finances. In the end, the investigation concluded in 2011 without any legal action being taken against Pastor Dollar or the other televangelists involved. However, the ministry's financial practices were still criticized, particularly for its lack of transparency. In response to the ongoing criticism, Ministry Watch, a group that monitors the financial behavior of religious organizations, gave Pastor Dollar's ministry a failing grade. The organization cited the lack of transparency in the ministry's financial operations as the primary reason for the poor rating. Despite this, Pastor Dollar continued to defend his ministry and its financial practices, emphasizing that everything he did was in line with his faith and calling. The campaign for a private jet, a step too far? In 2015, Pastor Dollar once again found himself at the center of controversy with his campaign to raise $65 million for a new private jet. The Gulfstream G650, a luxurious private jet, would be used for international travel, and Pastor Dollar argued that it was necessary for his ministry's global outreach. He claimed that the church's previous plane, a 1984 Gulfstream G3, had been involved in 2 accidents, including one in which the plane slid off the runway in London while carrying his wife and daughters. Pastor Dollar's supporters rallied behind him, donating to the campaign in large numbers. However, the campaign was met with immediate backlash from critics who questioned why Pastor Dollar needed such an extravagant aircraft when many other preachers and evangelists managed to travel using commercial airlines. One of the most vocal critics was Christian singer Kirk Franklin, who condemned the fundraising effort, calling it a display of greed rather than a genuine need. The controversy surrounding the private jet campaign only fueled the criticism of Pastor Dollar's lavish lifestyle, leading many to question whether his ministry's teachings were truly in alignment with Christian values of humility and service. Despite the backlash, Pastor Dollar remained resolute in his belief that the plane was necessary for his ministry's global outreach. He defended his campaign, arguing that the jet was not a symbol of greed, but rather a tool for spreading the gospel to more people across the world. Nonetheless, The fundraising campaign highlighted the ongoing tension between Pastor Dollar's message and his lifestyle, further fueling the debate about the ethics of prosperity theology and the role of wealth in religious leadership. The Prosperity Gospel, the foundation of Pastor Dollar's ministry. Creflo Dollar's rise to prominence was largely driven by his interpretation of the Prosperity Gospel, a controversial theological perspective that teaches God rewards faithfulness with material wealth and success. Dollar was not alone in advocating for this view. Many televangelists shared similar beliefs, but he stood out due to his boldness in promoting it. His message resonated with millions of people, especially those facing economic hardship, who believed that through faith, prayer, and financial contributions to the church, they could achieve financial breakthroughs. Dollar's teachings, often delivered with passion and charisma, emphasized that prosperity was not only a blessing but a divine right for Christians. He taught that faith was the key to unlocking financial success, and that those who sowed generous seeds of faith by tithing and donating to the church would be rewarded abundantly. This message was an integral part of the financial growth of his ministry, with World Changers Church International, founded in 1986, becoming one of the largest and most influential megachurches in the United States. As the church expanded, so did the controversy surrounding the wealth accumulation associated with its teachings. The campaign for the private jet, a turning point. In 2015, Pastor Dollar's ministry launched a fundraising campaign aimed at securing $65 million for a new Gulfstream G650 jet. The campaign, which sparked immediate backlash, became one of the most controversial chapters in Dollar's career. The public saw it as the epitome of greed and excess, especially given the growing concerns about the prosperity gospel and the lavish lifestyles of some of its proponents. Critics were particularly vocal because Pastor Dollar, who already owned a private jet, argued that the new jet was necessary for his global outreach efforts. He claimed that commercial travel was inefficient and that having a private jet would allow him to reach more people more quickly in spreading the gospel. The public outcry was swift and fierce. Many felt that a pastor who preached about financial success and wealth should not be seeking such a large sum of money for a personal luxury, especially when so many of his followers were struggling financially. The campaign was soon halted, and the promotional video featuring Pastor Dollar asking for donations to fund the jet was removed from the ministry's website. The incident further fueled the growing criticism of his ministry's financial practices and the prosperity gospel as a whole. Pastor Dollar defended his actions during a sermon, claiming that the devil was behind the backlash, attempting to sabotage his ministry. He insisted that he had never directly asked for money to purchase the jet, framing the campaign as a request for support from his global congregation. In his defense, Dollar argued that the critics did not understand the full scope of his ministry, nor did they appreciate the responsibilities he bore as a leader. He justified the need for the jet by emphasizing the global reach of his church and the practicalities of international travel. Despite his defense, the damage to his reputation was significant. The incident became a flashpoint in the ongoing debate over the ethics of prosperity theology, with critics accusing him of exploiting his congregation for personal gain. Even among his supporters, the campaign raised questions about the priorities of a ministry that seemed to focus more on material wealth than on spiritual growth. The tithing controversy, a shift in doctrine. Pastor Dollar's teachings on tithing, the practice of giving 10% of one's income to the church, had been a cornerstone of his ministry for decades. He strongly advocated for tithing, promoting it as a biblical obligation for Christians and a key to unlocking financial blessings. His stance on tithing was consistent with the prosperity gospel, which taught that the more people gave to the church, the more God would bless them in return. For many of his followers, tithing was seen as a means of securing divine favor and financial prosperity. However, in a surprising turn of events in 2022, Pastor Dollar publicly renounced his previous position on tithing. During a sermon titled "The Great Misunderstanding," he admitted that his earlier teachings on tithing were misguided. He confessed that tithing was a principle found in the Old Testament and that it was not applicable to New Testament believers who are guided by grace rather than the law. This was a profound shift in his theology, one that left many in his congregation and the wider Christian community stunned. Dollar went even further in his apology, urging his followers to discard any materials he had produced promoting tithing, including books, tapes, and videos. He acknowledged that he had spread an incorrect understanding of the gospel on this issue and expressed regret for teaching a principle that, according to him, had no place in the lives of New Testament Christians. To support his new position, Pastor Dollar cited Romans 6:14, emphasizing that Christians are no longer bound by the law, but are instead governed by God's grace. While many appreciated his willingness to admit his mistakes, the announcement sparked a new round of controversy. The change in doctrine was seen by some as a betrayal, especially among supporters of the prosperity gospel who viewed tithing as a vital part of their faith. For them, Pastor Dollar's disavowal of tithing threatened not only a long-standing tradition, but also the financial foundation of his ministry. Many wondered if this shift marked the beginning of a larger departure from the prosperity gospel, or if Pastor Dollar would continue to advocate for wealth and success, albeit through a different theological lens. The family scandal. Accusations of abuse. As if the controversy surrounding his financial practices wasn't enough, Pastor Dollar's reputation was further tarnished by a deeply troubling incident involving his daughter, Lauren. In 2012, Lauren accused her father of physically abusing her during a disagreement about attending a party. The situation escalated when Lauren called 911, claiming that her father had choked her, thrown her to the ground, and hit her in the face. The distress in her voice during the call suggested a level of fear and urgency that was impossible to ignore. The incident occurred on June 8, 2012, when Lauren was 15 years old. According to her account, the disagreement started when Pastor Dollar refused to let her go to a party, and it quickly escalated into a physical altercation. Lauren claimed that her father had grabbed her by the neck, forced her over a table, and hit her in the face, leaving her shaken and frightened. The police arrived at the Dollar family's mansion in Atlanta and conducted interviews with Lauren and her older sister, who corroborated parts of Lauren's story, saying she had witnessed the incident and saw their father grab Lauren and choke her briefly. A police report confirmed that Lauren had a visible scratch on her neck, which seemed to support her allegations. However, Pastor Dollar and his wife, Taffy, denied the accusations. Taffy Dollar, in particular, stated that she had not witnessed the incident and did not believe that her husband had acted inappropriately. Pastor Dollar himself defended his actions, stating that he had only been disciplining his daughter, not abusing her. He claimed that the incident had been misinterpreted and that the injuries sustained by Lauren were not a result of physical abuse, but were due to a pre-existing skin condition. Pastor Dollar's response to the scandal was to address it in a church service, where he vehemently denied the allegations. He portrayed the incident as a case of parental discipline rather than abuse, and received applause from his supporters. Dollar insisted that his actions were intended to correct his daughter's behavior, not to harm her. He further argued that if he had truly abused his daughter, the injuries would have been far more severe. His defense was a reminder of the complex relationship between public figures and their private lives, especially when it comes to matters of discipline and family dynamics. Despite the legal resolution, with charges being dropped and the case ultimately dismissed, the incident had a lasting effect on Pastor Dollar's public image. The scandal was widely discussed on social media, where opinions were sharply divided. Some defended Dollar, viewing the incident as an example of traditional corporal punishment that was misunderstood by the public. Others, however, condemned him, arguing that the line between discipline and abuse had been crossed and that his actions were inexcusable, especially given his position as a religious leader. The fallout and lasting impact. The allegations of abuse were a devastating blow to Pastor Dollar's reputation. While the legal system ultimately cleared him of criminal charges, the public discourse around the incident lingered for years. Critics of Pastor Dollar questioned how a man who preached about love, grace, and faith could engage in such violent behaviour. Supporters, on the other hand, viewed the case as a miscarriage of justice, arguing that the media and public had unfairly targeted a prominent man of faith. For Pastor Dollar, the scandal marked a turning point. It forced him to confront not only his teachings on prosperity and tithing, but also his personal life and the way he disciplined his family. The allegations of abuse added an emotional and personal dimension to the already controversial issues surrounding his ministry, and they left a stain on his legacy that has yet to fully fade. Today, Pastor Dollar remains a powerful and influential figure within the world of televangelism, but his journey has been anything but straightforward. His teachings continue to inspire millions, even as critics point to the darker moments in his career. As he moves forward, Pastor Dollar's story serves as a reminder of the complexities and challenges faced by public figures, particularly those who are also spiritual leaders. The line between faith and scandal is often blurred, and the price of fame can be steep, especially when personal actions contradict the ideals one preaches.